The Compliance Perspectives podcast is sponsored by Athena, customizable compliance training, an employee hotline, and case management all in one tool. Welcome to the Compliance Perspectives podcast. I'm Adam Turteltaub from the Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics and Healthcare Compliance Association. Joining us today from Vienna is Mujo Vilasevic. Mujo is Senior Compliance Officer at Raiffeisen Bank International. And today we're going to be sort of following up on a web conference he did on artificial intelligence. Mujo, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today, for doing the web conference, which I heard was incredibly well attended, and for taking on the topic of AI, which is such a great concern to people these days. First, let me ask, what are some of the common mistakes that you see made by compliance teams when it comes to AI?
Hello, Adam, and thank you very much for inviting me and for hosting today. Regarding your question, well, I think that most of the compliance officers are at the moment over dramatizing the AI topic in general. This is because we fear the stuff that we don't know, and I think that we should definitely investigate and research a bit more with AI specific experts in the field to get to know what is it about, what's happening here, and how can we actually infiltrate AI into our compliance and ethics programs, and what to do about AI. So I would say this over dramatization, like AI is going to take over the world, it's going to take over our jobs, it's very dangerous. On the other hand, it's also the issue whether we are open enough for learning the new thing. You know, the sentence, "we have been doing this all the time for years," is probably one of the most dangerous from compliance officers as well. So I would say openness for learning and to adopting new skills is also something that's a challenge on us. Yeah.
Yeah, we've always done it that way. Is often a prescription for bad things to happen for the future. So let's switch to the idea of getting things right. First, what do we all need to know about AI?
Well, it is definitely not going to conquer the world. That's very important to know. AI is not an enemy. AI can be a facilitator of every business of our day-to-day life. In fact, we've been using AI for decades now with the smartphones, with internet, with laptops, with all the technology that we basically use in our day-to-day life. We are actually using AI. The thing is just that since October 2022 and ChatGPT, when AI started to be globally actually known to everybody and accessible to everybody, people started to get a lot of very creative ideas about the AI. On the other hand, we should, as compliance officers, look it in two directions. I like to say it AI inside out and outside in. Inside out, AI, how to use it the best in compliance practices, in compliance departments, and outside in, how to take care about AI when it comes to the business and the company, meaning the products of the company, how to integrate our compliance efforts into the product approval process in the company, and etc. So it's basically facing with AI as a presence, not as some distant or dangerous future, but to use best of it and also to connect it with compliance and ethics programs.
And I think you make a really good point there that there's some stuff that's very much for the future, but the present is a lot more approachable. Now, the regulatory frameworks when it comes to AI are still evolving. We've seen law in Europe, but in the US, nothing on a federal level. Is there, though, an emerging consensus of what a regulatory framework should be?
Not unfortunately. In EU, yeah, we talk about this a lot, and we had EU AI Act, which is the first groundbreaking document of this sort and groundbreaking regulation in the world, I would say, about artificial intelligence. But on the other hand, we always, as compliance officer, have to be aware of what's going on in the world, also politically and socioeconomically. Nowadays, unfortunately, there's a huge regulatory focus also on defense policies. And on the other hand, we have this strengthening the idea that the AI programs and social media should have even more relaxed regulations than they actually have it now. So I don't see in the forthcoming future some extended AI regulation happening globally. It will happen locally, so to say, for sure. In Europe, definitely, because EU is also known for providing regulation for many, many different topics, especially new and emerging topics. In US, I'm not so confident about it. But on the other hand, what we must not forget when it comes to the regulatory framework, either it's AI, either it's GDPR issues, personal data protection, this to some extent for people might seem like this is trying to kill the business, but on the other hand it's quite opposite. It's trying to give a legal and healthy framework for the business. That's one. It tends to actually produce more innovation because people will be more free if they have some framework in which to surround themselves and through which to work with. And finally, it's about consumer protection because we forget so much and so fast that we are actually the final consumers of all of this. Whether we are compliance officers, entrepreneurs, having our own business, fine, but we are the one who are consuming this. And this is why I think that regulatory framework for AI is also very important. Nowadays, even as we speak, with the deep fake tools, with all the possibilities of image creation and news creation, we are working on slightly dangerous ground. So regulatory framework, especially for high risk AI tools, for example, those using biometrics, those using extremely sensitive personal data, this is of huge importance. And I hope that regulators across the globe recognize this.
So that leads into a question about what elements should be included in an ethical framework for AI.
So basically, it's enough for us to see the EU AI Act and the principles that are part of this document, which is integrity, data confidentiality, consumer protection, personal data protection, reliability of the data which are used, because usage of AI is so closely connected to the usage of the data, and especially personal data, consumers' data. So when we look at this and we look our ethics programs, we should already have embedded in our ethics programs principles of integrity, confidentiality, protection of consumers, protection of privacy of private individuals. So I don't see that AI is bringing us any novelty to this extent. This is one of the misconceptions about AI. It's just that we need to find a way how to embed AI and AI products is in our already existing ethics programs, which hopefully already have those principles. And now we just have to apply the same formula on this new development, but being aware that we do not suffocate the whole concept and the idea, but rather to help to build healthy business and AI usage to its maximum within the regulatory framework that we have.
Finally, looking to the future, what do you see the compliance team should be thinking about?
Educate, and train yourself and train your colleagues within the company. Because as I've said in the beginning of our conversation, I think that we fear only what we don't know. And there's so much to learn about artificial intelligence, and there's so many, many benefits that we can have from usage of AI. However, we need to learn, we need to educate also our companies, our staff, to prevent any misuse and also to draw the line. These are the ethical principles that we stick to, even though AI looks very shiny, it looks very attractive business wise, money wise. These are our core principles because this peak moment of the shiny stuff new on the market is gonna pass. We are not gonna be measured by how much actually we have used it in business, but we are gonna honestly be measured how did we stood next to our ethical principles when it comes to AI. Because in 5 years, I assure you something else is going to be future and present and new development, but we need to stick to our ethical principles. And that's the whole point. And to educate and to train and to also keep our consumers informed, which is very important, is the way to go for compliance officers, I would say. Yeah.
Well, it's going to very much be interesting to see how it impacts both our work and our personal lives over the next few years, and how much of it, as you point out, is real and a big deal, and how much of it is sort of not what we expected and a lot smaller. Well, Mujo, thank you so much for sharing these insights with us today. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to listen. I'm Adam Turteltaub from SCCE and HCCA. I hope we're able to expand your compliance perspective.